When you open your phone, when you listen to a song, or watch a movie, chances are you're touching a product from the same nation. A nation that makes the world eat their food, speak their language, and dream their dreams. Up above, American satellites track your every move. On the ground, Hollywood rewrites how you feel emotions. And in your wallet, the dollar, the symbol of trust, quietly dictates the rhythm of global life. No invasions, no violence needed. They conquer through habits, convenience, and dreams you think are your own. This isn't science fiction. This is the real world, where America is present in every click. Every ad and every dream you didn't realize belonged to someone else. Tonight, we'll talk about the strange journey of a nation. From a small colony dismissed by Europe, America has become a superpower that the world both admires and fears. No kings, no crowns needed. America conquers with movies, technology, hamburgers, and a belief in freedom. They turned Coca-Cola into a global icon. They made the iPhone an inseparable companion. They convinced you that freedom can be bought as long as you pay with your time, data, and attention. From the revolution of 1776 to Hiroshima, from cornfields to political tweets, America has written history with faith, ambition, and a fear of being forgotten. An empire that never sleeps, always awake, always in control, and somehow always making the world listen. In the next part of this story, we'll dissect this empire, how they built their power, how they planted belief, and how they made the American dream the dream of all humanity. You're building your own empire, your career, your image, or your dreams. America started with a belief, and so can you. But ask yourself, is the dream you're living really yours? Like if this part resonates with you? Subscribe to join me for the rest of the story. And comment, what does the American dream look like to you? Anatomy of a superpower. Building an empire without naming it. Yet imagine you're sitting in a small diner in a far-off town, ordering a hot Big Mac, a large Coke, and streaming Netflix on your iPhone to watch the latest Hollywood superhero blockbuster. Have you ever stopped to wonder why McDonald's pops up in every corner of the world? From the scorching deserts of the Middle East to the bustling streets of Tokyo, more common than the number of times you've sworn to start a strict diet? It's not just business as usual. It's how America builds its empire, not through grand military conquests or lofty political declarations, but through everyday things like fast food burgers, blockbuster movies, and glittering dreams of personal success. In this part, we'll dissect the colossal body of the American superpower, exploring how they subtly infiltrate every aspect of global life without hanging a sign that says, "This is our empire." We'll laugh at relatable comparisons, like how the US dollar is like a mandatory tip you have to pay in a global restaurant. Whether you like it or not, Tand reflects seriously on real historical events that have shaped the modern world. From a network of military bases scattered across the planet to the power of Hollywood and big tech, America has created a system of influence without crowns or clear borders. But this empire isn't invincible. It has cracks, and through deep analysis, we can draw lessons about ourselves, about how we're unwittingly swept into America's orbit, and how to balance embracing their influence with protecting our own identity. Ready to peel back the layers of flesh, blood, and bones of this superpower? Let's start with the sturdiest skeleton: military might. America's military power isn't just about its vast arsenal or cutting-edge technology. It's about a strategic global presence, as if they've opened military franchises on every street corner of the world, ready to intervene at a moment's notice. According to reliable data updated to 2025, the U.S. maintains approximately 750 to 800 military bases in over 80 countries, spanning from the icy wastelands of Greenland to serene coral islands in the Pacific. For comparison, the United Kingdom, once the empire where the sun never set now, has only a handful of modest bases, negligible next to America's scale. Specifically, Japan hosts 120 U.S. bases, Germany 119, and South Korea 73, numbers that surpass the combined total of bases held by all other nations. Humorously, these bases aren't just cold fortresses of concrete and barbed wire. They're often like mini American towns exported wholesale. For example, at Ramstein Air Base in Germany, one of Europe's largest command centers, you can find lush golf courses, a Taco Bell serving familiar fast food, and even a modern cinema screening the latest Marvel movies. Picture an American soldier in Qatar, munching on a hot Domino's pizza while piloting a drone strike thousands of miles away. That's the perfect blend of everyday comfort and strategic power, making military presence feel normal to locals. Historically, this network began after World War II to counter the Soviet Union during the Cold War, ensuring stability and curbing communism's spread. Ramstein, for instance, has been a command hub for major operations. From the 2003 Iraq War to supporting Ukraine in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict through 2025, showing America's ability to intervene in global hotspots within hours. But this military might isn't just brute force. It's like opening a coffee shop chain on every key intersection. Nobody can ignore your presence. And soon, people depend on the services you provide, whether it's security or influence. Digging deeper, this network also brings indirect economic benefits, like jobs for locals and boosted trade. But it creates dependency, making host nations reluctant to defy U.S. demands. For example, Japan and Germany, despite being major economies, maintain U.S. bases for regional security, allowing the U.S. to use these bases to project global power. Now, let's move to the lifeblood pulsing through this empire's veins, the economy, where the U.S. dollar isn't just currency, but the global rulebook. The dollar isn't optional, it's the standard, flowing into every transaction like blood nourishing a body. Based on the latest data up to 2025, the dollar accounts for about 88 to 90% of global foreign exchange transactions, 56 to 58% of central banks' foreign reserves, and roughly 54% of international trade. This means whether you're buying oil from Kuwait, importing smartphones from South Korea, or trading goods between two European nations, you're likely using dollars as the intermediary. Humorously, the dollar is like a mandatory tip in a global restaurant. You may not like it, but you pay it, or you're left out of the feast. This dominance traces back to the 1944 Bretton Woods Conference, when the U.S., with an economy comprising nearly half of global GDP post-World War II, convinced over 40 nations to peg their currencies to the dollar, initially backed by gold to inspire trust. In 1971, President Nixon ended the gold standard, but the dollar retained dominance due to America's economic strength, global financial networks, and investor confidence. As a result, the U.S. can print money without severe domestic inflation. As the world absorbs excess dollars through reserves and trade, a privilege economists call the exorbitant privilege. Additionally, the U.S. controls global financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank, where it holds the largest voting power influencing global policy. For instance, after the 1997 Asian financial crisis, the IMF required countries like Thailand, Indonesia, and South Korea to overhaul their economies, opening markets to foreign investment in exchange for massive bailouts. The result? American companies like Coca-Cola, Nike, and General Electric flooded Asian markets, turning millions of local consumers into loyal customers. Digging deeper, this not only captures markets but shapes global economic policy to favor U.S. interests, like free trade standards and intellectual property protections. However, this dominance creates risks for others. When the Federal Reserve raises interest rates to curb domestic inflation, it can trigger capital flight from emerging economies, causing crises like those in Turkey in 2018 or Argentina recently. That's how America conquers markets and financial flows without seizing land or resources. It's making the world as dependent on them as you are on WIF without it. Everything grinds to a halt. Now let's turn to the smooth, alluring flesh culture, where America conquers hearts and minds through sophisticated soft power, spreading like a virus through every meal, click, and nightly dream. Hollywood, Netflix, Apple, McDonald's, and big tech giants aren't just brands, they're cultural ambassadors, shaping how the world perceives and lives the American way. McDonald's, for example, serves over 65 to 69 million meals daily. It operates in over 100 countries with more than 43,000 restaurants, and sells about 75 hamburgers per second. Staggering figure that makes it a symbol of convenience and globalization. Doesn't just sell iPhones. It sells a premium lifestyle, where owning a $1,000 phone becomes a badge of success, creativity, and connection. Humorously, America exports addiction disguised as freedom and entertainment. Have you ever seen a kid in Brazil or India wearing a Spider-Man shirt, dreaming of being a Hollywood superhero instead of a folk hero from their own culture? That's the power of American culture, turning personal dreams into an exportable product. Historically, this began post-World War II, when the U.S. used the Marshall Plan not only to rebuild Europe economically, but to spread culture through movies, jazz, and later rock and roll and hip-hop. Classic films like The Godfather or the Star Wars saga don't just entertain. They shape how the world sees America as a land of opportunity, freedom, and innovation. By 2025, big tech like Google, Meta, and Amazon control the data, attention, and even behavior of billions. Take TikTok, though originally owned by China's ByteDance. It faced intense U.S. pressure. In 2025, U.S. laws forced ByteDance to sell most of its TikTok stake in America or face a ban, resulting in ByteDance holding less than 20% control, with the rest in American hands. This not only protects national security but ensures global platforms align with U.S. rules, from content moderation to data privacy. Digging deeper, American culture defines progress and modernity, from skyscrapers and shiny cars to millions of social media, like causing other cultures to fade. Starbucks doesn't just sell coffee, it sells the idea that you deserve a $5 latte, turning daily habits into status symbols. The result is an Americanized world, from eating habits to thinking, leading to cultural loss, as local festivals are replaced by Halloween or Black Friday. Yet, this empire isn't without cracks or controversies that could shake its foundations. Military bases, while providing security, often spark local conflicts in Okinawa, Japan. Locals protest environmental pollution, crimes linked to U.S. troops, and a lingering sense of occupation decades after World War II. The dollar's dominance makes dependent nations vulnerable. When the Fed raised rates in 2022 to 2023 to fight inflation, it triggered debt crises in places like Sri Lanka and Pakistan, pushing millions into poverty. American culture is criticized as cultural imperialism, diluting local identities like when a small Italian town swaps its traditional cafe for a Starbucks, costing family businesses and fostering global sameness. Digging deeper, these cracks stem from power imbalances. America benefits from the system, but others often pay the price, fueling the rise of rivals like China's Belt and Road Initiative. However, America's true strength lies in its flexibility, not ruling with rigid borders or dynasties, but by defining success and modernity in their image, making you willingly join their world, no matter where you live. Take a moment to reflect on yourself. Are you measuring your success by Americanized standards, a flashy car, a big house, or thousands of social media likes? Personally, I've noticed America's influence creeping into my daily life. Holding an iPhone, watching Marvel movies on weekends, or dreaming of a free, dynamic life like in America. But the biggest lesson is to stay mindful and balanced. Embrace the best of American culture like creativity and personal growth, but protect your identity by valuing local traditions, like enjoying a traditional family meal instead of fast food, or exploring films and books from other cultures to broaden your perspective. For example, instead of chasing Black Friday deals, join local festivals to connect with your roots. America's empire dominates by defining how you eat, watch, and dream, but you have the power to choose and create your own definition of success. Otherwise, you risk becoming an invisible part of their empire, losing independence in thought and action. If this part made you nod, laugh, or think deeper, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring this superpowers journey. Comment below. How have you been Americanized in your daily life? A favorite Marvel movie? or just dreaming of a life like in America? And what lesson do you take away for yourself?
The invisible empire, technology, culture, and silent control. Imagine you're scrolling through your phone, heart racing from an Instagram notification, a new like, a friend's comment, or a sudden ad for trendy shoes you don't need but suddenly crave. That's not random. It's the most sophisticated weapon of America's empire, turning screen addiction into connection, keeping you glued to content you didn't plan to see. Welcome to America's invisible empire, not built on guns or borders, but on complex algorithms, blockbuster movies, and dreams packaged in a shiny iPhone. In this part, we'll dive deeper into how America exports its culture and technology, from the early days of the internet to big tech's dominance. We'll laugh at everyday comparisons, like how algorithms are like a bad friend pushing you to buy things you don't. And reflect seriously on real historical events, like the Cambridge Analytica scandal or TikTok's struggle to survive in America. Through this, we'll draw lessons about how America's influence seeps into our lives and how we can maintain independence in a world shaped by them. Ready to realize you're living in this invisible empire without knowing it? Let's start the journey. We begin with technology, the brain of this invisible empire, where power runs through lines of code and digital infrastructure. Did you know the internet, which you use daily to watch videos, shop online, or argue on social media, is an American invention? In the 1960s, during Cold War tensions, the U.S. Department of Defense funded ARPANET to connect military computers, ensuring information could survive a Soviet nuclear attack. Humorously, what was designed to counter the Soviets is now where you watch cute cat videos, order from Amazon, or debate politics online. From ARPANET, the internet exploded in the 1990s, and American companies like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon quickly took the lead. By 2025, 4 of the world's top 5 tech companies, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Alphabet, are American, with a combined market value exceeding $4 trillion, larger than most countries' GDPs. These giants don't just sell products or services, they control how you access information and even shape how you think. For example, Google handles about 90% of global online searches. When you type how to get rich quick or best travel destinations, Google decides what you see first off in content promoting the American lifestyle. From Tony Robbins' self-help books to ads for Tesla electric cars or US-based online courses. Humorously, Google is like a super smart but biased librarian, always guiding you to the American shelf first, while content from other cultures gets pushed down. Digging deeper, this power isn't just about providing information. Google and similar companies use algorithms to prioritize content ads, and even viewpoints that align with American economic and cultural interests, subtly shaping global users' perspectives. But technology isn't just about information. It's a battle for your attention. Think about social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are American creations, controlling how you interact, feel, and even argue. Real event. The 2018 Cambridge Analytica scandal exposed how personal data from tens of millions of Facebook users was illegally harvested to influence the 2016 US election and the Brexit referendum. Humorously, while you thought you were casually posting beach photos or sharing personal stories, your data was being analyzed to predict your voting habits, shopping preferences, or even your feelings about social issues. Meta's algorithms act like a fake best friend. They know what you like, fear, or want before you do, using that to keep you scrolling and selling your data to advertisers. By 2025, Meta and Google earn hundreds of billions annually from ads, turning your attention into a goldmine. And don't forget TikTok, though originally Chinese owned by ByteDance, bowed to us pressure. In 2024, U.S. Congress passed a law forcing ByteDance to sell most of TikTok's U.S. operations or face a ban. By 2025, ByteDance holds less than 20% control, with American investors owning the rest, ensuring the platform follows U.S. rules on content and data. Digging deeper, this shows America not only controls domestic tech, but imposes its will on foreign companies, forcing them to play by U.S. rules or exit the world's largest market. This power isn't just economic, but cultural, as platforms like TikTok, despite their global flair,
must align with American values and regulations. Now let's shift to culture, the beating heart of this invisible empire, where America conquers not with force, but with stories, images, and dreams. Hollywood doesn't just make movies, crafts dreams carefully packaged for global consumption. From superhero blockbusters like The Avengers to classics like Titanic, Hollywood shapes how the world views love, courage, and success. Real event. After World War II, America used the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe economically and spread culture through films, jazz, and later rock and roll, countering Soviet communist influence. As a result, a kid in Brazil or Vietnam might dream of being Iron Man or Captain America instead of their culture's traditional heroes. Humorously, Hollywood is like a master storyteller, convincing you that every good story must happen in New York, Los Angeles, or an Americanized setting, with individualism and the American dream at the core. Digging deeper, Hollywood doesn't just sell movie tickets. It sells a cultural lens where values like personal freedom, material success, and heroism are glorified, while communal or local traditions are often overshadowed. And it's not just movies. American music, from the Beatles' rock and roll to Jay-Z's hip-hop or Taylor Swift's pop, shapes global tastes. By 2025, Spotify, though Swedish, reports that American artists account for over 50% of global streams, with Billboard Hot 100 songs dominating international charts. Even K-pop, South Korea's pride, borrows from American production styles, with groups like BTS and Blackpink collaborating with U.S. labels to conquer global markets and Billboard charts. This shows American culture's power not just in direct influence, but in shaping global trends, making other cultures Americanize their products to fit international markets. Then, look at everyday cultural icons, where America's influence becomes so familiar you barely notice it. McDonald's, with over 38,000 restaurants in more than 100 countries, doesn't just sell burgers. It sells the idea that fast, convenient eating is modern and progressive. Starbucks turns a $5 coffee into a symbol of luxury and status, making you feel deserving of it, even if you grumble about the price. Humorously, you might queue for a latte while complaining about living costs, yet feel satisfied because you're living a modern lifestyle. Real event. When McDonald's opened its first Moscow restaurant in 1990, thousands of Russians lined up for miles not because they were hungry, but because it symbolized the West, freedom, and connection to the modern world. By 2025, even after Russia tried to de-Americanize by closing McDonald's amid the Ukraine conflict, the cultural imprint of these brands persists, with local replacements mimicking American business models and styles. Digging deeper, brands like McDonald's and Starbucks don't just sell products. They sell a lifestyle where convenience, individualism, and consumption become global standards, replacing traditions like family meals or local cafes. The result is an Americanized world, from golden McDonald's arches to Starbucks green cups dotting the landscape, as if they're a natural part of global culture. But this invisible empire isn't without flaws or cracks. American tech faces heavy criticism for privacy violations. Real event. Edward Snowden's 2013 leaks exposed the NSA's PRISM program, revealing global surveillance of not just U.S. citizens but millions worldwide. Including allies like Germany and France, American culture is accused of cultural imperialism, eroding local identities, like when a small French town swaps its traditional cafe for a Starbucks, costing family businesses and fostering global uniformity. Social media algorithms, though smart, can manipulate emotions, making you feel anxious without enough likes, or trapping you in information bubbles where you only see views aligning with yours. Digging deeper, these issues stem from power imbalances. America benefits from controlling tech and culture, but others pay with privacy, identity, and independence. Yet the empire's strength lies in its invisibility. You don't see it as a flag or border, but you live in it daily, from how you browse, dress, or define happiness. Take a moment to reflect. Do you live in America,
But if your mood swings with an Instagram notification, if you dream of owning a Tesla, or if you spend hours on Netflix instead of exploring local culture, you're part of this invisible empire. Is your time your most precious asset yours by free will, or does it belong to algorithms designed in Silicon Valley? Personally, I've noticed America's influence subtly shaping my life, checking Instagram each morning, enjoying Marvel movies on weekends, or getting sucked into online ads for perfect products. But the biggest lesson is staying mindful and in control. Embrace the best of American tech and culture like creativity, convenience, and connectivity. But protect your identity by valuing traditions like joining local festivals instead of chasing Black Friday, or exploring your country's folk music on Spotify. America's invisible empire controls by shaping your desires. But you can choose and define your own happiness and success. Otherwise, you risk becoming an invisible citizen of their empire, living dreams designed from afar. If this part made you realize you're living in America without knowing it, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring. Comment below, which American app or movie controls you most? What lesson do you take to stay independent in your life?
The military dream power as a religion. Imagine spending money on a Netflix subscription not to watch shows, but to feel like you're still in the game, part of the modern world, always updated and never left behind. Now, scale that up 1,000 times. America spends over $877 billion annually on defense, a staggering sum surpassing the combined military budgets of the next 10 countries, from China to Russia. Humorously, this isn't just spending. It's like a hymn, a sacred ritual to affirm their superpower status. Much like posting gym selfies on Instagram to prove you're still on top. In this part, we'll dive deeper into America's military dream, where war isn't just armed conflict, but a way to define identity and maintain global influence. We'll laugh at everyday comparisons like how America deploys drones like you order Grab food, fast and precise, and reflect seriously on real historical events, from World War II to decades-long counterterrorism wars. But beware, beneath this military might lies a deep fear, the fear of becoming irrelevant, of losing their central role on the global chessboard. Through analysis, we'll draw lessons about ourselves, about the battles we fight to prove our worth. Ready to peer into the heart of America's military machine? Let's start with the numbers and global presence. America's military strength isn't just in its impressive numbers, but in how it turns power into an unassailable symbol. According to 2024 data, the U.S. defense budget reached about $877 billion, accounting for nearly 40% of global military spending, dwarfing China and Russia. The U.S. owns 11 aircraft carriers, more than the rest of the world combined, on over 5,000 military aircraft, from cutting-edge F-35 stealth fighters to Reaper drones capable of precise strikes from thousands of miles away. Humorously, these drones are like Amazon's express delivery, except they deliver bombs instead of packages, often controlled from a room half a world away. The foundation of this machine was laid during World War II, when America became the arsenal of democracy. Producing about 40% of global weapons, from tanks and warships to the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, those bombings didn't just end the war. They sent a clear message to the world. America is the biggest player on the geopolitical board, with power no nation dares challenge. Post-World War II, during the Cold War, America solidified its status through NATO, a military alliance with 32 member nations, by 2025, in a network of 750 to 800 bases, stretching from Japan and Germany to tiny Pacific islands. For example, Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, though small, serves as a strategic launch pad for Middle East operations. From the 2003 Iraq War, 2 airstrikes in Afghanistan. Digging deeper, this network isn't just military, it's a symbol of global presence, letting America intervene in hotspots within hours. It's like checking your phone notifications to stay on top of everything. But this presence creates dependency. Nations like Japan or South Korea, though allies host U.S. bases for security, allowing America to leverage these bases for global economic and political influence. War isn't just about weapons or bases, it's a ritual, a way for America to affirm its superpower identity and stay number one. Look at the 1991 Gulf War prime example. When Iraq invaded Kuwait, America led an international coalition, deploying 540,000 troops and defeating Iraq's army in just 100 hours of ground combat in Operation Desert Storm. Humorously, this campaign was broadcast live on CNN, turning war into a reality TV show. With a global audience cheering like it was the Super Bowl, this swift victory not only liberated Kuwait, but reinforced America's image as the world's policeman, ready to act to maintain global order. However, not all wars are such clear successes. Consider the war in Afghanistan, launched after 9/11 to destroy al-Qaeda and topple the Taliban. The U.S. spent over $2 trillion and deployed hundreds of thousands of troops. But after 20 years, the Taliban regained power as soon as America withdrew in 2021. It's like investing your life savings to fix a house, only to move out because it still collapses. Digging deeper, prolonged wars like Afghanistan or Iraq reveal a paradox. America enters conflicts not just for military goals, but to remind the world and itself that it remains the indispensable superpower. War becomes a ritual, reinforcing belief in American strength, even at the cost of thousands of lives, billions of dollars, and uncertain outcomes. America's military power isn't just on the battlefield. It's reinforced through culture, turning war into mythology. Hollywood plays a key role, portraying American soldiers as symbols of courage and sacrifice. Films like Saving Private Ryan or American Sniper aren't just entertainment. They glorify the U.S. military, making global audiences see American soldiers as world-saving heroes. Humorously, while you're watching a war movie on Netflix with popcorn, the U.S. military uses these films for recruitment, real event. The U.S. Department of Defense funds numerous Hollywood films, like Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick, to promote the Air Force and Navy. The result? Generations of kids and teens worldwide grow up dreaming of being fighter pilots, Navy SEALs, or Hollywood-style heroes, even if they've never held a gun or lived in a war zone. War culture seeps into daily life. From video games like Call of Duty, where players become American soldiers fighting enemies, to toy tanks or American flag t-shirts for kids. Digging deeper, Hollywood and cultural products don't just glorify the military. They shape how the world views war, turning complex conflicts into simple tales of good versus evil, with America as the champion of justice. This normalizes militarization, from kids playing shooting games to adults cheering at grandiose military parades. Yet, this military dream has cracks that threaten its foundation. Prolonged wars like Iraq and Afghanistan raise questions about their true purpose. America spent trillions, lost thousands of soldiers, and caused hundreds of thousands of civilian casualties, often without achieving lasting peace or stability. Domestically, the massive defense budget is criticized for diverting resources from critical areas like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. For example, the cost of one F-35 jet could fund thousands of college scholarships or improve healthcare for millions. Internationally, U.S. military presence sparks controversy. In Okinawa, Japan, locals protest environmental pollution, crimes linked to U.S. troops, and a lingering sense of occupation since World War II. Humorously, America is like a self-appointed big brother, eager to help by imposing its presence, but sometimes resented for meddling too much. Digging deeper, these controversies reveal a core contradiction. America's military strength is both its power source and a trigger for resistance. Rivals like China and Russia exploit this discontent, with initiatives like China's Belt and Road offering alternative models to U.S. dominance. Yet, America's military remains the backbone of its superpower status, like a religion with rituals, grand parades, missile tests, and televised campaigns to remind the world that America never sleeps, always ready to act. Take a moment to reflect. In your life, have you ever fought battles at work, in relationships, or with yourself not to achieve a specific goal, but to prove you're still strong, still relevant? I've realized I've chased goals to affirm my worth, like overworking for recognition or maintaining a perfect social media image. But the biggest lesson is distinguishing between battles that matter and those driven by ego. Like America's military dream, sometimes we fight not to win but to feel in the game. To stay balanced, ask, what's worth fighting for? Focus energy on meaningful goals, like building deep relationships, learning from other cultures, or defending personal values, instead of chasing externally defined standards. Like Hollywood's hero image or America's success metrics. For example, instead of watching Top Gun and dreaming of being a pilot, explore your country's military history to connect with your roots. This way, you can escape the invisible rituals America imposes and define your own strength and success. If this part made you reflect on your battles or laugh at the drone grab food comparison, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring. Comment below. Do you think America is truly the world's policeman, or just an overzealous big brother? What are you fighting for in your life, for real goals, or just to prove you're still on top?
The birth of a nation. Freedom as a code. Imagine sitting in a dimly lit room, candlelight flickering, pen scratching paper, writing a letter declaring you'll no longer live by anyone's rules. No detailed plan, no hefty budget, just a fierce belief that you deserve a free life, deciding your own fate. That's the spirit of 1776. When a group of colonists in a remote North American colony stood up to challenge the British Empire, the world's mightiest power at the time, America was born not from perfection or superior strength, but from a bold idea. Freedom is a code, a formula to unlock every limit, from political oppression to social constraints. In this part, we'll travel back to explore America's birth, from the American Revolution to the contradictions of a young nation. We'll laugh at everyday comparisons, like how the Declaration of Independence is like a fiery Instagram post full of passion but short on practicality, and reflect deeply on real historical events. From the flawed Constitution to the bloody Civil War, this isn't just a story of a nation's formation. It's about how bold and perfect first steps can change the world. Through this, we'll draw lessons about ourselves, how we can start our own revolutions with similar courage, ready to decode the American dream. Let's begin with those chaotic, hopeful early days. It all started in 1776, when Britain's 13 North American colonies decided they'd had enough of distant oppression from King George III. Unfair taxes like on tea and sugar and restrictive laws sparked their fury. Like when you're annoyed at a boss demanding unpaid overtime or absurd rules. In Philadelphia, a group from Thomas Jefferson, a talented Virginia farmer with a sharp pen, to John Adams, a stubborn lawyer passionate about justice, gathered to draft the Declaration of Independence. The famous line, "All men are created equal," rang out like a sacred promise, not just for Americans, but for the world. Humorously, this document was written in a room where enslaved people served coffee and cleaned floors, exposing the American dream's core contradiction from the start. Real event. The Declaration, adopted on July 4th, 1776, wasn't just a breakup letter to Britain. It was a war cry against Europe's outdated feudal system, where kings and nobles ruled with absolute power. But America didn't win through lofty ideals or superior military might. They triumphed thanks to rugged terrain, strategic aid from France, and a bit of luck. The 1781 victory at Yorktown, where British General Cornwallis surrendered, marked the birth of a new nation. Humorously, Britain saw this rebellion as a minor annoyance, like ignoring a rebellious cousin, not expecting this cousin to grow into the modern world's boss. Digging deeper, the American Revolution wasn't just a fight for independence. It was a daring experiment to build a society based on freedom and equality, though initially only for a small group, mostly white property-owning men. But being born was one thing. Surviving and thriving was another challenge. America soon faced a tough question. How do you unite a diverse group,
from stoic New England farmers to wealthy Southern planters, with clashing cultures, economies, and interests. In 1787, the U.S. Constitution was born in Philadelphia, hailed as a political masterpiece, but really a rushed marriage contract, full of holes and compromises. For example, it sidestepped slavery, allowing Southern states to continue the practice to secure their support for the Union, planting seeds for the Civil War. Humorously, the Founding Fathers argued like you and your friends debating where to eat dinner. Everyone had an opinion. From small states' rights to central government power, but they compromised to reach agreement. The Constitution introduced a unique separation of powers, dividing government into three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial, to prevent anyone from becoming a king or dictator. This was a stark contrast to Europe, where a monarch could behead you for a wrong glance. But the Constitution's genius was its imperfection. The founders didn't wait for a perfect document. They created a flexible framework, amendable over time. For instance, the Bill of Rights, added in 1791 with 10 amendments, guaranteed freedoms like speech, press, and religion, after complaints that the original Constitution was too vague. Digging deeper, this flexibility reflects the American spirit, unafraid to experiment, fail, and view mistakes as opportunities to improve. It's like starting a new project with a rough plan, ready to adjust when things go wrong. The Civil War was the harshest test of this young nation's dream of freedom. The conflict between the industrial North, favoring abolition, and the agricultural South, reliant on slave labor, wasn't just moral, but a battle over identity. Would America be a unified nation, or a loose collection of states, each setting its own rules? With over 600,000 deaths, the Civil War was America's bloodiest conflict, surpassing all other U.S. wars combined. Humorously, while soldiers bled on battlefields, American inventors and entrepreneurs were busy innovating, developing reapers, expanding railroads, expanding factories, as if they knew war was temporary, but economics and innovation were eternal. The North's victory, led by Abraham Lincoln, preserved the Union and led to the 1863 Emancipation Proclamation, freeing millions of enslaved people in rebellious states, though true freedom took decades of civil rights struggles. The Civil War didn't just unify America geographically. It forged a new national identity with a booming post-war economy. Coal production surged 800%, and railroads expanded 567% from 1865 to 1898, making America an economic powerhouse. Digging deeper, the Civil War showed America's strength in overcoming crises, redefining itself, and turning challenges into opportunities. It's like overcoming a personal crisis, like losing a job or a breakup, and finding the drive to rebuild a better life. The freedom as a code spirit isn't just political or legal. It's a mindset, a way of life. America was born from people who left Europe's social, religious, and economic constraints to seek new opportunities in a strange land, despite risks and hardships. There were immigrants, farmers, merchants, and dreamers, not waiting for perfection, but starting with what they had. Humorously, founding fathers like Benjamin Franklin were players of their era. Franklin wasn't just a printer and inventor of the lightning rod. He was a diplomat who charmed French ladies to secure France's aid for the Revolution. But this messy, bold spirit made America's strength. They didn't fear failure, but saw it as a lesson to go further. Real event. After the Civil War, America expanded globally with the 1898 Spanish-American War, seizing the Philippines, Guam, and Puerto Rico, marking its shift from a domestic nation to a global empire. By then, America wasn't just a nation, it was an idea spreading worldwide, convincing people that freedom, however imperfect, was the key to progress and prosperity. Digging deeper, this spirit remains the American dream's foundation, a readiness to experiment, take risks, and reinvent. Yet this freedom code isn't without flaws or painful contradictions. The promise that all men are created equal sounded noble, but didn't apply to millions of enslaved people, women, or Native Americans for centuries. Slavery persisted until 1865, and even after. Black Americans faced racism and inequality through Jim Crow laws.
Native Americans were displaced, with millions dying in wars and forced relocations, like the 1830s Trail of Tears. Women only gained voting rights in 1920 with the 19th Amendment. Over a century after the Declaration, humorously, America is like a tech startup launching a flashy product promising to change the world, but needing constant updates to fix serious bugs. Yet America's ability to reinvent from a flexible constitution to 20th century civil rights movements sets it apart. They didn't aim for perfection from the start. They aimed to improve through each challenge and amendment. Digging deeper, this imperfection is the greatest lesson. An idea, though flawed, can change the world if you dare to start and keep improving. Take a moment to reflect. Are you waiting for the perfect moment to start a project, a dream, or a big life change? The Founding Fathers didn't wait for everything to be ready. They started with farmers, lawyers, and big dreams, despite chaos and risks. I've realized I've delayed my own revolutions, like starting a new job, learning a skill, or fixing a relationship, fearing failure or feeling unprepared. But America's birth teaches us freedom doesn't come from perfection, but from the courage to act, accept mistakes, and fix them. Think about the freedom code in your life. What part of you yearns to break free, but is held back by fear of failure or judgment? For example, instead of waiting for the ideal time to pursue a passion, start small, like learning a skill on YouTube or writing a journal page to clarify your goals. Like young America, you don't need to be perfect from the start. You just need to begin and be ready to adjust. This way you can break invisible constraints from social pressures to fear of failure and build a better version of yourself. If this part inspired you or made you laugh at the image of Benjamin Franklin flirting for French aid, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring. Comment below. What's the first revolutionary step you want to take in your life? What's holding you back? Fear, doubt, or just lacking a personal declaration of independence?
The frontier spirit addicted to more? Imagine you just bought a new shirt, feeling a rush of excitement, but days later, you're scouring the internet for another, telling yourself just one more will make you truly satisfied. Now, scale that feeling to an entire nation. America, from its earliest days, has been obsessed with wanting more and more land. Resources, influence, power. Their frontier spirit isn't just about expanding from the East Coast to the West. It's a mindset, an addiction to progress that never stops, a relentless craving to conquer new horizons. In this part, we'll dive deeper into how America turned conquest into a lifestyle. From the California gold rush to SpaceX's cosmic ambitions, we'll laugh at everyday comparisons, like how the gold rush resembles you jostling in a Black Friday sale for a discounted. TVON reflects seriously on real historical events, from the Louisiana Purchase to the first moon landing. But beware, this addiction to more has dark sides, and it'll make you question what you're chasing in your own life. Ready to step into the mind of a nation that never stops? Let's start with the early days of expansionist desire. The frontier spirit began with America's earliest settlers, who crossed the Atlantic, leaving Europe's social and economic constraints to seek new opportunities in an unknown land. They weren't just seeking land. They sought meaning, a chance to reinvent themselves, to become better versions of who they were. By the early 19th century, the idea of manifest destiny emerged, proclaiming America was destined to stretch from the Atlantic to the Pacific, as if it were their divine mission. Humorously, it's like telling yourself you're destined to own an entire Zara wardrobe, not because you need it, but because you feel you deserve it. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson made a historic deal, buying Louisiana from France for $15 million, doubling America's size with a single handshake. This deal, like snagging a vast estate for the price of an eBay apartment, opened the door to westward expansion. But America's ambitions didn't stop there. In the 1840s, America annexed Texas, defeated Mexicana in the Mexican-American War, and claimed California, Arizona, Nevada, and more through the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. In 1867, they bought Alaska from Russia for just $7.2 million cheaper than a used car butt today. Alaska generates billions from oil, gas, and tourism. Digging deeper, these deals and victories weren't just about land. They reflected a restless mindset, always seeking to expand, not just territory, but economic and cultural influence. It's like buying a new gadget, but immediately eyeing the next, never feeling enough. The 1849 California gold rush perfectly embodies this frontier spirit and addiction to more. When gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill, tens of thousands called 49ers flocked to California from around the world, armed with pickaxes, hope, and dreams of quick riches. Humorously, it's like a modern Black Friday, with people shoving, competing, and even fighting for a shot at a better life. From 1848 to 1855, California's population exploded from 14,000 to over 300,000, and America became a top gold producer, extracting about 750,000 pounds of gold, worth billions today. But not everyone struck it rich. Most prospectors went broke or barely survived, while merchants selling pickaxes, food, and Levi's jeans born during the rush made fortunes. Spirit taking big risks for big rewards shaped America. In 1869, they completed the Transcontinental Railroad, linking the East and West like a giant zipper, cutting travel time from 6 months to 6 days. Humorously, while thousands of Chinese and Irish laborers sweated and died building it, tycoons like Leland Stanford made millions, like influencers profiting from ads while others do the grunt work. Digging deeper, the gold rush and railroad weren't just economic milestones. They symbolized a nation willing to bet everything for more, regardless of the cost. But the frontier spirit isn't confined to land. It's a never-enough mindset that pushed America beyond Earth's boundaries. After conquering the West, America looked to the skies, making space the new frontier. Real event. In 1969, NASA's Apollo 11 mission landed Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon, beating the Soviet Union in the space race. Armstrong's step and words "one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind" were not just scientific but a global PR campaign. Like a high-definition YouTube live stream watched by the world. Humorously, while the Soviets sent dogs to space, America sent humans and filmed it in HD for global bragging rights. By 2025, Elon Musk's SpaceX continues this spirit with plans for Mars missions, launching Starlink satellites for global internet and dreaming of extraterrestrial colonies. But the new frontier isn't just space, it's digital. Companies like Amazon, Google, and Meta turned your data into the new gold, mining every click, search, and post. Humorously, you think you're freely browsing for information or fun. But you're digging gold for Silicon Valley like 1849 prospectors, unwittingly enriching tool sellers. Digging deeper, the frontier spirit has shifted from physical territory to space and data. But its core remains a drive to conquer and redefine how the world works, from e-commerce to global connectivity. Yet, this addiction to more has costly dark sides. Westward expansion devastated Native American tribes, with millions displaced or killed. Real event, the 1830 Indian Removal Act. Signed by President Andrew Jackson, forced thousands of Cherokee and others from their ancestral lands, leading to the Trail of Tears, where over 4,000 died from disease, starvation, and exhaustion. The gold rush caused severe environmental damage, polluting rivers and ecosystems, with a legacy still felt today. In modern times, America's tech and economic race created stark inequality. Billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk amass wealth exceeding many nations' GDPs, while millions of American workers struggle with minimum wages and no health care. Humorously, America is like an online shopping addict, adding items to the cart without considering the bill or consequences, from social inequality to climate change, from overexploitation. Digging deeper, the frontier spirit drives progress and innovation, but makes enough a foreign concept, not just for America, but for a world caught in its cycle of consumption and competition. Rivals like China, with the Belt and Road Initiative, mimic this spirit but focus on infrastructure over culture or tech. Take a moment to reflect. Have you ever been swept up in the addiction to Mara, better job, a new gadget, or more social media likes to fill an inner void? I've realized I've chased more, a newer phone, a pricier vacation,
or a perfect social media image. But the biggest lesson from America's frontier spirit is distinguishing healthy ambition from uncontrolled obsession. The line between pursuing dreams and being consumed by more is thin. Sometimes pausing, being content with what you have, and focusing on true values like family, health, or personal meaning is real progress. For example, instead of buying another shirt you don't need, spend time enjoying a family meal or exploring a new hobby. America's frontier spirit teaches that ambition can take you far, but without care, it can lead you astray. Ask yourself, what frontier are you chasing? And do you dare pause to ask, is this enough? If this part made you laugh at the Black Friday image or reflect on your own more addiction, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring. Comment below. What more are you chasing in your life? What would make you feel enough? The myth of the good nation. Imagine you see yourself as the hero among friends, always ready to fix every drama, from breakups to petty fights, only to realize people complain you meddle too much, sometimes making things worse. That's America's story after World War II, when they crowned themselves the hero of the free world, defending democracy against all threats. To maintain this role, America needed villains from communism in the Cold War to terrorism in the 21st century, like a Hollywood superhero movie, needing a mastermind to defeat for a gripping plot. In this part, we'll explore how America built the myth of the good nation, from the Marshall Plan to the world's policeman role. We'll laugh at everyday comparisons, like how America saves the world like you fixing the Wi-Fi for the house, unasked, and reflect deeply on real historical events like the Cold War or 9/11s. But this myth isn't just glory. It's a burden and sometimes a pretext for control and self-interest. Through this, we'll draw lessons about ourselves, about the times we try to be heroes in our lives, and the costs involved. Ready to see America's superhero cape? Let's start with the era that shaped this myth. It began after World War II when Europe and Asia lay in ruins. But America emerged nearly unscathed, with an economy comprising nearly 50% of global GDP in 1945. In 1947, America launched the Marshall Plan, spending $13 billion, about $150 billion today, to rebuild Western Europe, including Germany, France, and Italy. Humorously, this wasn't just charity. It's like helping a friend fix their house but installing security cameras in their living room to ensure they follow your lead. Real event. The Marshall Plan didn't just revive Europe's economy. It opened markets for American goods and culture, from Coca-Cola and Levi's to Hollywood films like Gone with the Wind. As a result, Europe became not just an ally, but a loyal customer, dependent on American products and culture. But the bigger goal was countering the Soviet Union in the Cold War, when America and the USSR competed to shape the world order. America led NATO, a military alliance with 32 members by 2025, and built a global network of bases to counter the Red threat. A prime example is the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. When the Soviet Union placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, 90 miles from U.S. shores, under President John F. Kennedy, America imposed a naval blockade and negotiated intensely, forcing the Soviets to withdraw missiles, averting nuclear war. Humorously, while the world held its breath over annihilation, America produced ads about the American dream, with happy families beside Cadillacs or modern ovens, as if saying, "We save the world, but we stay stylish." Digging deeper, the Marshall Plan and Cold War weren't just about economics or military. They laid the foundation for America's myth as a good nation, willing to sacrifice for freedom and democracy, though driven by strategic calculations to maintain global influence. To play the hero, America needed villains to bolster its narrative. During the Cold War, communism from the Soviet Union, China, two revolutionary movements in developing nations was the perfect enemy. America intervened everywhere, from supporting dictators in Latin America to stop communism. Like in Chile in 1973, to funding Mujahideen fighters in Afghanistan against the Soviets in the 1980s. Humorously, America is like a big brother jumping into every neighborhood squabble uninvited, sometimes worsening things. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, marking America's Cold War victory, they needed a new foe to sustain the hero myth. The 9/11 attacks in 2001, when Al-Qaeda struck the World Trade Center and Pentagon, killing nearly 3,000, provided the perfect catalyst. America launched the War on Terror, invading Afghanistan in 2001 to topple the Taliban and hunt Osama bin Laden. Iraq in 2003 based on unproven claims of weapons of mass destruction. Iraq War cost over $3 trillion, toppled Saddam Hussein, but left Iraq in chaos, with civil war and the rise of groups like ISIS. It's like smashing a beehive to chase one bee, only to face an angry swarm with bigger consequences. Digging deeper, these wars weren't just about defeating enemies. They reinforced America's myth as a good nation, acting to protect the world. Though outcomes often fell short and raised questions about true motives, the good nation myth is strongly reinforced through culture, especially Hollywood, turning military campaigns and soldiers into symbols of sacrifice and courage. Films like Black Hawk Down or Zero Dark 30 don't just tell war stories. They glorify the US military as world-saving heroes. Humorously, while you watch these films on Netflix with popcorn, the Pentagon funds them to promote the military and boost recruitment. For example, Zero Dark 30 portrays the hunt for Osama bin Laden as a thrilling saga, making audiences proud of America's resolve. But culture goes beyond movies. It seeps into life through ads, video games like Call of Duty, and even sports events, where fighter jets fly over Super Bowl stadiums to stir patriotism. Digging deeper, American culture doesn't just sell the hero image, it shapes how the world views justice, freedom, and America's indispensable role in global order. But this creates a distorted lens where U.S. interventions are seen as just, while consequences like instability in Iraq or Afghanistan are downplayed or ignored. Yet the good nation myth is a heavy burden with dark sides. America is criticized for over-intervening in other nations' affairs. For example, in 2011, America backed NATO airstrikes to topple Libya's Muammar Gaddafi. But Libya descended into civil war and chaos. Domestically, the world's policeman role exhausts Americans. Many question why trillions from their taxes fund foreign wars, while domestic issues like healthcare, education, and infrastructure suffer. A 2023 report noted that Afghanistan and Iraq war costs could have provided healthcare for millions of uninsured Americans. Humorously, America is like a tired superhero, still donning a flashy cape despite wanting to rest and focus inward. Digging deeper, the good nation myth often masks practical motives. America doesn't just act for freedom or democracy, it protects trade routes, strategic resources, and economic influence. For instance, the U.S. Fifth Fleet in the Persian Gulf ensures the flow of 20% of the world's oil supply, vital for global and U.S. economies. Humorously, America is like a supermarket security guard. But the supermarket is the world, deciding who shops and who doesn't. Still, the good nation myth makes the world both admire and suspect America hero with its own agenda. From economic interests to maintaining superpower status, take a moment to reflect. Have you ever tried to be a hero in others' eyes, helping friends, overworking, or taking on too much just to feel essential? I've fallen into this trap, solving friends' problems, working to exhaustion for recognition, or maintaining a perfect image. But the biggest lesson from America's good nation myth is the hero role can be a burden, often driven by fear of being forgotten or irrelevant. Like America, we might chase validation through actions, but this can lead to burnout or harm.
Are you carrying a burden to prove your worth? And if you let go of the hero role, could you find peace by focusing on what truly matters, like health, family, or simple joys? For example, instead of pleasing everyone, take time for yourself, like reading a favorite book or walking without phone distractions. This way, you can escape the pressure to be a hero and find balance in your life. If this part made you laugh at America's tired superhero image or reflect on your own hero role, Hit like and subscribe to keep exploring. Comment below. Have you ever overplayed the hero in your life? And what taught you that sometimes resting is the way to be your best self? The dream and the mirror, the internal battle. Imagine standing before a large mirror, staring at yourself after a long journey, glorious successes, indelible scars, and moments where you ask, who am I now? Am I still true to what I once dreamed? That's where America stands in 2025. Still the world's dominant superpower, but wrestling with a battle not against external enemies, but within itself, divided, doubtful, and caught in drama more intense than a Netflix reality show. In this part, we'll dive deeper into America's internal battle, from fierce political polarization to relentless fights on social media. We'll laugh at everyday comparisons like how X is a coliseum where people brawl like Olympian gods, hurling memes instead of lightning bolts, and reflect seriously on real historical events, like the 2020 election or social media's impact on societal psyche. This isn't just a story of an empire facing itself. It's about a nation forced to look in the mirror and ask, the dream got us here, but where do we go next? Through this, we'll draw lessons about ourselves, about the times we face our own inner conflicts, and how we redefine ourselves. Ready to see the reflection of this superpower? Let's start with the cracks within. America entered the 21st century as the sole superpower after the Soviet Union's collapse. But its shine began to fade due to deepening internal conflicts. Real event. The 2020 presidential election was one of the most divisive in U.S. history, with over 159 million votes split between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, reflecting a nation polarized into two camps, conservative and progressive-like rival football teams refusing to concede. Humorously, televised debates between candidates looked like WWE wrestling matches, with personal attacks outshining policy discussions, leaving viewers both captivated and appalled. The climax was the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot, when thousands of Trump supporters stormed Congress to protest the election certification. Shaking America's image as a beacon of democracy, it's like hosting a grand party to show off your perfect home, only for guests to trash the place and cause chaos. This event didn't just shock the nation. It made the world question whether America remains a model for freedom and stability, or a nation tearing itself apart. Digging deeper, the riot wasn't just about an election. It reflected decades of polarization, fueled by economic inequality, distrust in traditional politics, and cultural divides between urban and rural areas. Globalists and America First advocates. Social media has become the new battlefield, where Americans fight not with guns, but with words, memes, and unrelenting criticism. Platforms like X operate as public arenas, where everyone from politicians to celebrities to online vendors argues over taxes, climate change, or who deserves to be canceled for a misstep. Humorously, X is like a global cafe where, instead of friendly chats, people scream at each other through phone screens, wielding memes and hashtags as weapons. Real event? In 2023, X posts about issues like free speech or Black Lives Matter garnered billions of views. But instead of fostering constructive dialogue, they often deepen divides, with groups attacking each other rather than finding common ground. Algorithms, designed by American companies like Meta or X Corp, prioritize controversial content to keep users engaged, generating massive ad revenue. The result is a nation where people live in separate information bubbles, only seeing views aligning with their own, like choosing only your favorite dishes at a buffet and wondering why you didn't try others. Digging deeper. Social media doesn't just reflect division, amplifies it, turning minor differences into major cultural wars. From masked debates during the pandemic to sensitive issues like abortion or gun control. Economic inequality is another crack shaking the American dreams myth. America's home to billionaires like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, whose wealth exceeds many nations' GDPs, but also to 37 million people living below the poverty line in 2024. Real event. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed this gap starkly, as tech companies like Amazon and Zoom reaped record profits from digital shifts, while millions of workers lost jobs or worked in hazardous conditions for minimum wages. Humorously, America is like a lavish party where a few savor caviar and fine wine while most scramble for leftover breadcrumbs. This inequality fueled social movements like Black Lives Matter, with 2020 protests spreading across 140 cities, demanding racial and economic justice after George Floyd's death. But instead of unity, these movements often became social media battlegrounds, with sides accusing each other, deepening divides. Digging deeper, inequality isn't just economic, it's cultural and psychological, with many Americans feeling left behind in a nation that promised opportunity for all. This erodes faith in the American dream, the idea that hard work guarantees success. America's future is also threatened by global challenges, complicating its internal battle. The trade war with China started in 2018 with tariffs on Chinese goods, continues into 2025, raising prices and hitting U.S. consumers. Yet, America leads in tech innovation, with companies like OpenAI shaping AI's future and SpaceX targeting Mars missions. Humorously, while America launches rockets to space, it's busy arguing on X about climate change costs or gun control. America maintains 750 global bases and an $877 billion defense budget in 2024. But domestic issues like climate change, inequality, and polarization hinder its global leadership focus. America is like a distracted superhero, saving the world from external threats while bickering internally over identity and direction. Digging deeper, these challenges reveal a paradox. America is the world's strongest superpower, but its power is tested by internal conflicts, from political divides to public discontent with the system. Yet America's greatest strength is its ability to reinvent, facing cracks and finding ways to mend. They've overcome major crises from the Civil War to the Great Depression by looking in the mirror and embracing change. However imperfectly, humorously, America's like a friend who always messes things up from politics to social media, but somehow finds a way forward. It's through civil rights movements, economic reforms, or tech innovations. This internal battle between lofty ideals of freedom and equality and the reality of division and injustices in the end, but a chance to redefine itself, digging deeper. America's ability to reflect and change sets it apart. They don't shy from the mirror, even when the reflection isn't as pretty as they'd like. Take a moment to reflect. Is your personal empire, your identity, career, or dreams facing a similar mirror? Are you clinging to an old version of yourself just because it once worked? I've realized I've tried to maintain a perfect image, like overworking for validation or sticking to familiar habits, avoiding necessary change. But the biggest lesson from America's internal battle is, when old dreams no longer fit, it's not failure. It's a chance to redefine yourself. Ask, what part of you needs to face the mirror and ask, who do I really want to be? For example, instead of chasing a job that no longer brings joy, explore a new hobby or set goals aligned with your values. Like America, you can overcome inner conflicts by embracing imperfection and starting a journey of reinvention, where you can find a stronger, truer version of yourself. Let's recap our journey together. America began as a band of rebels, drafting the Declaration of Independence while sipping British tea. They built an invisible empire, making the world eat Big Macs, scroll iPhones, and dream of California beach houses. Humorously, America is like a friend throwing epic parties, but sometimes forgetting to invite themselves. They conquer with military mights, 100 bases, 11 carriers, but also with small things, like Starbucks making you feel deserving of a $5 latte. They defined success and freedom their way, making the world chase them. But now, they stand before a mirror, facing division, inequality, and the question, who are we now? Real events, from the 2021 Capitol riot to 2025 debates over AI and climate change, America remains the world center, but a messy one, like a party everyone loves and fears. But this isn't the end. America, like all of us, is a story still being written. Humorously, they're like a Netflix series full of plot twists and drama, but you can't stop watching. And perhaps what makes America special isn't its power or culture, but its ability to reinvent, however messy or imperfect. The final question isn't for America, but for you. What dream drives you? Is it one you chose, or one planted by an algorithm, a movie, or an idea from afar? Thank you for joining this journey through laughs, real events, and moments of reflection. If this story feels worth sharing, hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment. What dream shapes your own little empire? Good night or stay up. Keep dreaming.